Hi guys, my name's George Wright. I'm here with We Will Rock You Project, and today we're just going to do a little bit more work on listening to songs and seeing how we can describe them. Okay, so to do this, basically we're going to do the same thing as we've done previously, where we're going to write down a list of musical words, and then we're going to write down a list of instruments, and then we're going to see if we can get them instruments and musical words and put them, equate them to the songs that we're listening to, okay? So for our musical words, we're just going to I'll give you a brief run through of a few that we came up with last time, okay? And have a look yourself and see if you can come up with your own or research your own as well, okay? So a couple that we've got here, we've got acapella, which basically means when you are playing alone, okay, or singing alone. So you can sing a cappella, you can play a cappella. That's what that basically means. So when we talk about tempo of a tune, by tempo I mean how quickly it's played. So for instance, if I'm clapping, I can clap slow, like that. That's tempo. Or I can clap quickly. You know, each of them is different tempos, okay? So the tempos we've got is adagio, A-D-A-G-I-O, which basically means to play something slow, so kind of like a slow clap. You have allegro, which basically means to play something quick and like with a kind of, it's got kind of like a skip to it sort of thing. So that's allegro. So allegro is kind of like a, okay, so that would be kind of allegro sort of rhythm. And andante is basically in between both of them. Let me just quickly tell you how to spell allegro. So allegro is spelled A-L-L-E-G-R-O. And then andante, E-N-D-E-N-T-E, is basically a medium speed. So that's kind of like your normal sort of speed. Okay, that's kind of like your basis, your normal. Okay, let's then go on to talk about structure. So structure is how a song is made up. So what parts it's in. So for instance, you can have structures which are like, it's called call and response. So that's probably a good one to write down, call and response. Okay, and that's basically where you have someone does a phrase and then someone answers it. So it's like, hi, how are you? Yes, I'm doing fine. What are you doing with your day? I am going to the supermarket. You know? Like call and response. It's you ask a question and then you get a reply. So that's one form of structure, one that we will be hearing later today, funnily enough. So that's structures. Have a little look, see if you can Google some different types of structures or form as well. So then you've got harmony, okay? So that's how the music sounds, okay? So the easiest way to think about this is harmony. You have two basic kinds, okay? You have minor harmony and major harmony, all right? So if it's a minor harmony, if the harmony's minor, I should say, then it'll probably sound a little bit sad or maybe eerie or unsettling, okay? If the harmony's major, then it's gonna sound happy and upbeat and good, okay? You're gonna feel positive about it. So that's kind of how you think about them too. Then let's talk about dynamics. So write that word down, dynamics, D-Y-N-A-M-I-C-S, dynamics. So what does dynamics mean? Dynamics is basically how loud or how quietly you perform the song or anything, okay? So when you listen to a song, does it sound really, really loud? Like, for instance, rock music normally sounds quite loud. Then in that case, it would probably be forte, which basically means played loud. If it's quietly like this, and you can hardly ever hear what it says, then it's probably played piano, which is spelled P-I-A-N-O, just like piano spell. And similarly, if it's somewhere in the middle, you just put them two words together and say it's piano forte, which is just both them words put together. Okay, so there's a list of musical words. Have a look yourself, okay, because I'm not going to get all of them for you. So you're going to have a look at yourself, but think about words in them sort of ideas. So in terms of words to describe the structures of the song, words to describe the harmony of the song, words to describe how loud or how quiet it is, so the dynamics of the song, and words to describe how quick or slow it is, okay? So the tempo of the song. All right, so now that we've got a list of musical words down like that, let's have a think of some instruments that we could put in. So we've got a few instruments that I've already put in here. So we've got guitar, bass guitar, cello, violin, viola, which is a bit like a violin. Google it to see if you find it. Drum kit, and then percussion as well. So a drum kit is like your standard drum kit. Percussion is like maracas and shakers and stuff like that, okay? So I'm just going to add in a few other ones in here, just because today we're looking at a bit of world music, so we might get a few instruments that we haven't heard of before. So, first thing first, let's have a look, and let's think about some Indian instruments. So in India, they have some instruments which are called sitars, which is spelled S-I-T-A-R, so S-I-T-A-R. And sitars kind of sound like guitars a bit, but they kind of sound a little bit foreign and a little bit world musicy. It doesn't sound quite as Western as guitars do. Okay, so have a little Google of them and see what they look like, because we will be hearing a bit of sitar later on. So you've got sitar. You've also got think about it as being like let's think about vocals as well. We don't have vocals on there, so look at vocals. And then also, if you want to have a look, there's something which is called Satba vocals, which is S-A-T-B vocals. You don't have to worry too much about it. It's basically just how we refer to different voices. So, for instance, you can have sopranos, altos, tenors, and bass, okay? And these are all different types of voice. So going from soprano to bass, it's basically you're going high to lowest voice. So if I was singing, I'd probably be somewhere in the tenor or the bass range, for example, okay? Whereas if it was, you know, a female singer who could sing really, really, really high, they'd probably be a soprano, okay? So that's always one to think about as well, what type of voice you're listening to. So once again, that's soprano, highest, alto, a little bit lower pitch, tenor, this is where the males sort of normally come in, lower still, and then bass, which is the lowest of them all, okay? All right, so brilliant. We've had a look at a few different words there. Let's have a listen to these songs and see what we think about. So our first song is a song by Chet Baker, who is a famous jazz trumpet player, okay? And this is one of his pieces called Let's Get Lost. So let's have a listen. Let's get lost. We've got drums, particularly playing on the hi-hats. So I'll put drums in there, hi-hat. So there's also vocals in there, aren't there? Okay, I heard a bit of piano. There's also some trumpet in it later on, but you'll be able to hear that yourself. Okay, then let's think about a few other things that's going on. So let's also have a think about how you've got the vocals coming in, and then also in a little bit you've got a little bit of a trumpet. I'll just fast forward. There we go. So you've got the trumpet taking over the melody line, all right? So have a little think about how melody is working, everything like that. So what a melody is it's basically the part of the song which is like the lead part, okay? So it's kind of like, so if you were doing like a nursery rhyme, like London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. If you're doing that, then that part of it, London Bridge is falling down, that would be the melody line, okay? So similarly here, we've got the trumpet taking the melody. And it's actually, by the sound of it, it might be doing a solo. So that's a good thing to take into account as well. So you have solos in music as well. So where a player is improvising, these are all words that we could put down, by the way, on our music word section. So make sure we write them. So it sounds to me like the trumpet player is improvising, which basically means he's making up what he's playing on the spot, which happens a lot in this sort of music that we're listening to. So this is what we'd call jazz, okay? J-A-Z-Z. All right, and here's another word for the musical words, genre. So G-E-N-R-E. And what genre means is basically it's a way that we can define different types of music and the way they sound. And create groups of them. So for instance, this is a jazz song. So that is the genre of this piece of music. Okay, but that's enough to look at for now for this song. So have a think about what it is structurally, its dynamics and how quick it is as well. And write some of that down, okay? But let's quickly move on to the next song. So the next song is a piece which is an African piece actually. So we're definitely getting into the realms of world music here. So let's just have a quick listen. So it's a choir. There's no instruments. Do you hear that? No like instruments or anything. All vocal led. So we'll put in choir, vocals. So one thing that happens a lot when you hear vocalists playing is you get something which is called harmony, which is where two people will sing slightly different notes to make it sound either pretty or, you know, sad or whatever. But have a listen to this next bit because it's a really good example. Hear that? Really good example of harmony there. Yeah, so also have a think about how quick it is. I'd say that was fairly slow to middling maybe. So I'd say maybe go for a sort of allegro sort of thing. Now let's think about the dynamics, okay? Dynamics, I'd say that is piano forte. It's kind of in the middle, isn't it? But it like goes up and down, so it's kind of hard to tell straight directly which one it is. It's kind of up to you to say. Instrumentally wise, it's fairly easy. You've got different voices going on. So just remember as well, them words we were using before, soprano, alto, tenor, bass, for vocals. So remember, soprano is the highest, alto a little bit lower. Tenor, you're starting to get into male ranges, and then bass is the lowest of them all. And that's kind of, I'm right, tenor bass sort of area, if that gives you a good example. So it'd be good to have a look at them words and see how they relate to this song, because it's all vocal there. Oh, that's interesting. So if you hear in the background, you can hear it, there's actually a little bit of percussion going on as well. I'm not sure what percussion instrument it is, but yeah, it's a percussion, and we know it's a percussion instrument because it's making a sound, but it's not making a note, okay? So for instance, if I clap my hands, that's a percussive sound because you're getting a sound from it, aren't you? But you're not getting an actual note. Whereas if I sang a note, you get an actual frequency sort of thing. So that's kind of where the difference lies and stuff like that. Okay, so that was a song called Homeless by Lady Smith, Black Mambazo. Okay, so carry on having a look at that yourself. Give it a look. See what you can figure out. Use them words, use some of your own words. Have a listen, see if there's other instruments involved as well. All right, so we're going to quickly move on, and we're going to listen to some Indian classical music now. So Indian music, I love Indian music. It's one of my favorite things to listen to. Harmony-wise, it's a little bit different to what we've been talking about before, where we've been talking about major and minor harmony. Indian music kind of goes a little bit differently, and you can tell that when you hear it. It doesn't sound like it's major or minor. It's like in between a little bit. So have a listen to that and see if you can notice it. But anyway, let's have a listen first. So you hear that string instrument, yeah? That's the sitar that we were talking about before. It's spelled S-I-T-A-R. Beautiful instrument, but it's important that you learn what that sound is like, okay? So that's a sitar. We've got some drums in the background, but it's not a drum kit, is it? So we call it percussion because we're not 100% sure on what type of drum it is, but we know that it's basically given like a backbeat sort of thing. So we'll say percussion. Now here's an interesting thing to say, is what we've got in the background there. I'm not sure if you can hear, but we've got something which we call a drone note. Now what a drone note is it's basically where we have a note in the background and it just carries on throughout the whole of the song. It's normally a lower note and it's just droning in the background, okay? So have a listen, can you hear it? I think that's it. Yeah. Okay, and it's just carrying on throughout the whole of the song. So that's another note, word to remember, drone note, okay? So what else can we look at? So we can look at its speed, how quick is it going? And I'd say it's a fairly allegro song, so it's kind of somewhere in the middle. Yeah, well, somewhere in the middle to going a bit quicker. Okay, harmony, it's kind of somewhere in between major and minor. In terms of how we can describe how loud it is, it's a bit of a tricky one describing how loud stuff is, because it's one of them things where it changes throughout the song. Like, for instance, choruses tend to get a little bit louder, whereas things tend to dip in the verse and stuff like that. So it's a little bit of a hard one. I would say that is kind of more of a forte sort of sound, so a little bit more on the loud side of things, okay? Similarly, have a listen, see if you can figure out what the structure is of it and everything. But yeah, I'll leave the rest of that to you, okay? So, and that song, by the way, was called Dahun by Ravi Shankar. Okay, so we've given you a brief listen to them tunes. I've given you a few little starter points for what you can put to describe their musical words and what instruments are in it as well. So if you have a look at my sheet here, you can see I've just done it down here. I've got a list of my musical words here. I've got a list of instruments here, and then I'm just writing them in as I hear the words that fit with it on the bottom here. Okay, so that's a really good way to try and hear and listen to the differences, and listen out for different instruments as well in our songs, okay? So just to quickly go through them songs that we just went through, our first one was a jazz piece called Let's Get Lost by Chet Baker. Chet is spelled C-H-E-T, Baker, B-A-K-E-R. The one after that was an African piece. I'm not quite sure where on the continent it's from. I'd probably have to look that up. But it's called Homeless, and it's by Ladysmith Black Mambazo. And that was like the African piece, which was very much vocal-led with a little bit of percussion. Then the one after that was called Dahun. I'm not quite sure how it's pronounced, but it's D-H-U-N, is Dahun. And it was by a guy called Ravi Shankar, which is spelled R-A-V-I-S-H-A-N-K-A-R. And yeah, he's great. He's really good. And that had different instruments that we haven't heard before, like sitar and also drone notes and stuff like that. Okay, so that's great. Have a full-on listen to them songs. I know we couldn't listen to the whole of them, which is a shame, but we listened to a bit. So have a listen to all of them songs. See if you can come up with your own musical words as well as the ones I've given you, and also a list of instruments that include more of them than I have, because I definitely haven't told you all the instruments which were in all of them songs so far. Okay, that's plenty for you guys to be getting on with. Hope you enjoy. My name's been George Wright. I've been here with We Will Rock You, and I'll see you next time.